Hello and welcome to the Good Stories podcast. I'm Jody here with Steven, and I'll tell you, it is really fun to come back each episode with an entirely different type of good story. There are just so many different kinds, and each episode we've done so far has felt entirely different in pulling it together. And today is no exception. Today's story is Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. It's an understatement, I think, to say that this book is complicated. It raises moral and ethical questions and includes strategy and leadership, along with space battles and video games. It's just a big mashup with a big twist ending. So let's get into it. Time for a story.
It is the future. The human race has survived 2 invasions by the alien bugger species and is fearfully waiting on a third conflict. In order to find a leader, a special family is allowed to have 3 children. The first, Peter, is too aggressive. The second, Valentine, is too passive. But the third, Ender Wiggin, also called Ender, seems to be the perfect fit. At the age of 6, he leaves his family to attend combat school. This academy in space becomes his training ground, where he first becomes an exceptional soldier and then an exceptional commander. Through a grueling series of games and interpersonal conflicts, he develops his inner genius. He then graduates to command school, where he experiences an even more grueling course of training in order to be ready when the next conflict with the alien buggers arrives. Ender must deal with this cataclysmic event and its aftermath.
I feel like I should congratulate you every time. It's hard to summarize a whole book like that.
Boy, and I found this one especially challenging to summarize. This book can be read in so many different ways. Depending what lens you put on it, it's a very different book. Every time I've read it, it's been different. So, summarizing was a challenge.
So one of the best things that's come to me through doing this podcast is I read introductions and prefaces. Now, I never, ever have done that.
Welcome.
And
Welcome
now
to my
I
world.
do, and they're fun. So this one on my book, the author wrote it. And a quote I want to read about fiction. He says, "Why do we read fiction anyway? I think that most of us read these stories that we know are not true because we're hungry for another kind of truth. The mythic truth about human nature in general, the particular truth about those life communities that define our own identity, and the most specific truth of all, our own self-story. Fiction, because it was not about somebody who actually lived in the real world, always has the possibility of being about ourselves." I think that nails exactly why Ender's Game is a great book to read, because it's not even current. It's in the future, and it's totally different, and the rules are different, and we'll talk about those. But there's a lot compelling in it. And yeah, I learned a lot.
It is interesting how it is set in the future, but this was published, in the early 1990s?
80s. It was still Cold War time.
Okay, yeah. And so the picture of the future, it's interesting what things were prescient and what things don't seem so futuristic now as they did when I first read this many years ago.
Yeah, and Russia and the Warsaw Pact play a big role in the political aspect of it, but the name of the first chapter is called Third, which I think communicates a lot. Chapter 1 is named Third, and it's because he's a third child, as you mentioned. There are rules, very strict laws, that you can only have 2 kids, up to 2 kids. So clearly there's a population limitation. So where's Ender at the beginning?
First of all, can I say I think this may be one of the reasons I love the book to begin with. As a third child myself, we tend to see ourselves in the books we read. So, of course, Ender is third. Yeah, like you said, in this world, the families are not allowed to have more than 2 children. You're allowed to have 1 and 2, but third is actually a derogatory term. And it's very rare that this is allowed. You get the sense early on that this is a special family and a special situation, and the government had granted them the ability to have a third child because the government was looking for something. They were looking for somebody to train up, and we soon learned they're looking for a soldier in this, but not just a soldier, a commander, a leader. And we first meet Ender as he's having his monitor removed.
Yeah, it's a medical procedure, and the nurse tells him, "This won't hurt a bit." And he thinks in his head, that's a lie. Like, he's already at the age of 6.
Mm-hmm.
This boy is 6 years old. And the whole thing, it's like he's already grown up.
Very much so.
Same with his siblings. They're, Valentine's a couple years older, and Peter's maybe 4 years older than him,
I
somewhere
think
in
they're
there.
each about 3 years separate.
Yeah, so he's getting his monitor removed that he has. I got the impression he's had it since birth,
That's the impression I got as well.
and it hurts. It does.
Very much.
bad.
They lied to him.
Oh, it's a really rough beginning, and I should say this is a very different flavor story than one we've done up to now, but it is compelling to read. This is the kind of book I can't put down when I read it, and it's really interesting, but it is darker.
Very much so. It's interesting way it's written as well, because it throws you into the middle of things. It's a great way of world building, as many books do, where this is just the world that exists, and they drip you information fast enough that you can catch up, but there's still a lot of mystery around what's going on and who the characters are. The mystery is kind of heightened by the fact that they have two separate narrations going that parallel each other throughout most of the book. You have a conversation basically with the grown-ups, and the grown-ups in this setting are military personnel. There is clearly a military goal assigned to Ender and to everything that's going on, and then you have the parallel story going on, usually from Ender's point of view. Going back to the name Ender, just to escape confusion here, his name is Andrew Wiggin. Wiggin is the family name. Andrew is his first name. But since he was the third child, there would be no more children from this family. He was absolutely the end, hence coming the name Ender, and that's what they called him.
Well, he calls himself Ender because his mama calls him Andrew.
Good point.
And they call that out. Anyway, so Ender's getting his monitor out, which incrementally you learn is this little thingy that lives at the base of their neck. It's attached to the spinal cord. And it hurts when they take it out, and he goes into shock, basically. And the doctor makes an aside. It's the only line, really, the doctor has, but basically that it's messed up. This kid had this so long. It's not meant for that.
Mm-hmm.
But Ender is his own thing. He's his own special thing. But then he goes back to school. He's in school on Earth, and he shows up, and everybody, all the other kids notice immediately, his monitor is gone.
Now he's just like everyone else.
Yeah.
You get the sense that this monitor was something that set him apart, that this is something everybody knows. The government has a specific purpose for the children who wear these monitors. Later, we learn that his older brother Peter and his older sister Valentine also had these monitors, but they were removed, and removed at an even younger age than when Ender had his removed. So now it's out, and there's an assumption that this means he's failed, that he's not in the system anymore, that he can now just live his life and be normal like the rest of them. The problem for Ender is that this monitor was also a way that others knew he was being watched by the government. And this is a world of bullies, and the bullies now know he's not being watched anymore.
Yeah, so in the first chapter, a specific bully named Stilson basically attacks Ender at school. He waits for him. He and his group attack Ender. And Ender, throughout, he hates violence, but he's really good at it. And so this 6-year-old boy who has been watched his whole life is now defenseless, and he has to take care of his own problems. And so he destroys this bully. He puts him on the ground, and he keeps going.
Brutally and efficiently. And we are introduced to Ender's thought process on this. It hurts him to be hurting anyone. He just wants to be left alone, but he knows that he's now a target, and he also knows that if he doesn't solve this problem now, then he is going to be picked on, beat up, and really put in danger every day of his life for the rest of his life. And so he knows that he must solve the problem now. And as you said, he does it efficiently, and it's violent. It's gruesome.
It is. And then he walks away. He leaves the kid bleeding on the ground, and he goes home. And then that's when we get to meet his big brother, Peter. You get the sense on Earth, it's been a time of war with the bugger invasions, and they're prepping for this third one. It's inevitable. And so everything seems a lot more brutal, actually. And Peter is no exception. He is a murderer at heart. And he's like 12 years old, maybe 10 at the time. It is hard to read, but Valentine, his big sister.
We'll probably switch back and forth
I say
pronouncing it each way.
Valentine because of Valentine's Day. It's spelled like that. But but she loves Ender and Ender loves her. And so they really are a team. And Peter's been limited in how much he can hurt them because Ender's had the monitor. Somebody's been watching that whole time, and now they see it's gone. And this is where we learn how early Peter lost his monitor. He was 3 years old because he was intended to be something special. And it turns out he is, but not what they needed.
This is where we really start to meet the Wiggins family. Mom and Dad don't play a huge role in this other than as the parents of the children, but these 3 children are so very important to this story. Peter, an absolute sociopath. He's brilliant like all of them are, and that's a recurring thing through each of these 3 children. Absolutely brilliant. But Peter, zero compassion, zero guilt, absolutely a violent sociopath is the best word I have to describe him.
But he'll have moments where he's like, I was just kidding. No big deal. So he's very manipulative, even at such a young age.
And Ender talks about how all the kids, not so much the kids at school, but the teachers at school all think Peter's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
He can put on a mask and he can get what he wants by putting on this mask. But the mask comes off around his siblings, and there is a great deal of anger, rage, and violence toward them. Peter was the first one, and like you said, he was meant for a specific purpose, but he was just too much of a sociopath, even for a military purpose.
At the age of 3,
was
they figured that out.
Too violent in order to achieve what they needed to achieve. And so Valentine was the next best shot at it, but she kind of goes to the other end of the spectrum. Again, incredibly brilliant, but too passive, too gentle, could not function as a soldier. And so Ender was the way of bringing all that together. And he kept the monitor in for longer, and there was a thought that, yeah, he was probably going to be the one, but in this scene, he's not covered anymore. And so Peter can kind of do what he wants.
Yeah. When the parents get home, they are surprised, but somewhat sympathetic, like, oh, it's okay. But suddenly somebody from the IF shows up, which stands for International Fleet. So Colonel Graff is his name, and he's a recurring character throughout this book, a big mover and shaker in the military world. It's his job to train someone to be a commander in this battle, to train the soldiers. Anyway, he shows up to talk to Ender, and he asks him very pointedly, why did you hurt the boy, Stilson?
Not what did you do, not how did you do it, not what did the boy do to you. The question is, why did you do it?
And Ender, he cries a bit at the start of this book. He'll cry a couple times. That goes away later. But at the beginning, he's still young enough in his mind to have emotions and cry about it. But he explains to Colonel Graff that, quote, knocking him down won the first fight. I wanted to win all the next ones too, so they'd leave me alone. And that's really Ender. I mean, he can hurt people, but he really just wants people to leave him alone, to stop messing with him, both in his head and in his body, and that doesn't really happen.
No, poor Ender.
I know. I really, this whole book, I was struck just how decent he is for all the things he goes through. I really care about Ender. He's great. He's exceptional. He's brilliant, and he's lonely and sad because he has to hurt people because they make him, they force him. Anyway, we're getting there.
This is the right answer. This is what Colonel Graff wants to hear. And so at this point, he gets offered the chance to go to the battle school. The battle school is the place where soldiers are trained. Everybody knows about the battle school. Everyone knows it's a thing. It's up in space. That's about all anyone knows of it, other than kind of videos saying how great it is for people to go there. But this is where Colonel Graff offers Ender the chance to go to battle school.
Yeah, and the parents say no, which would surprise me because that was why he was born, or why it seems like he was commissioned almost.
Yeah.
But Colonel Graff talks to him and says, yeah, it's not going to be easy, but you get to play a role in protecting humanity, this world, your family included, from the buggers, humanity's enemy.
Yes. And the particular part of humanity that actually really drives Ender to say yes and go is Valentine.
Yeah, to protect his sister.
He goes to protect his sister. This is where the story really starts to pick up. So they get on a spaceship. This is the future. They get on a rocket. And this little 6-year-old kid gets on this ship with all these other kids who are the launchies. They're the young class. They're the new class that's going to go off into space. And so as they're doing this, Colonel Graff is talking with Ender. And you see from the beginning that the leadership in this school is working to isolate Ender, to make him where he can't be friends with the other students, but to where he will be impressive in terms of what he does.
Yeah, very intentional. So he's getting on this spaceship and he's a smart guy. So he figures out like, oh, we're not going to have gravity. So he buckles in a certain way and he just takes the initiative. Colonel Graff gets in and I love how he describes it when the gravity goes away. Cause then it's like he's climbing down a ladder upside down. I don't know. It hurts my head, the lack of gravity, but the descriptions are really good as to how he does it. He basically yells at all the other kids and says, why aren't you smart like Ender? So very intentionally isolates him, makes the other kids hate him. From the start.
From the start. And we've already had one bully moment on Earth with Stilson. Here we get our second bullying moment within this ship. Ender is clamped in, buckled in, just trying to get this ride over, already knowing people don't like him because he's been shown to be kind of the teacher's pet, when all of a sudden he starts to feel pain as somebody takes a belt buckle and starts smashing him with it.
Yeah, on the head.
The kid keeps doing it. Ender tries to just wait it out and let it go, but kind of like before, he knows this isn't going to end. He knows this is a problem that has to be solved, and the teachers don't seem to be willing to step in and help him solve this problem. So once again, Ender solves it. He catches the kid's hand as it comes forward, grabs him, and in this zero-gravity rocket ship, he flings him across the room and shatters his arm against a wall. I mean, he solves the problem immediately, and this is Ender's introduction to the combat school.
And you get perspective from the administration, Graff, and I forget the other guy's name, but they're pleased with it. He took initiative. He solved his own problem, and that's what they are looking for. So the degree of manipulation in this is extreme.
Yes, and they are clear that he cannot believe that a grown-up is ever going to help him, that somebody else is ever going to step in. Their entire focus is that he must solve his own problems, which is heart-wrenching for this little guy who's going up here.
Yeah, so you mentioned Valentine was too kind. It's also mentioned that she had empathy and understanding. So Ender is the kind of perfect combination, the ideas of Peter, so he has the violence in there, but of that understanding of people and really thinking through what people want and what people need. So Ender gets up to this battle station to train soldiers, all kids from, he's probably on the, is he the youngest?
He's on the young side. I think 6 is the youngest they go up, and then up to 12 to 16.
Yeah, I was thinking somewhere around 16, but then they graduate or they get iced out. Means you get sent home or you're kicked out, iced out. Anyway, when he's new to this launch group, and the guys on the shuttle already hate him. It's mostly boys. There are a few girls at Battle School. They mention that. Mostly boys. He is intentionally put into these situations designed to make him handle them. So they hate him in his launch group already. And it's funny. He walks in and he's late because he asked Colonel Graff, like, why were you such a jerk to me? I thought we were friends. He's like, no, I'm not your friend. I'm here to train you. So he walks in late and he's looking for a bunk. They're all full, so he takes the one at the very front by the door because it's what's open. Their leader comes in. He's like, oh, you've already picked who's the head of your group. That's the bunk they get. So that worked out.
One of the things you start seeing here, though, especially in this launch group where he's there with the brand new kids to the school, is you get to see that Ender can also solve problems without violence. So far, violence has been the tool he had available to him. But here you start to see his intelligence. You start to see the way he can utilize the computer systems. You start to see the way he can read the dynamics of different people within the group and actually make friends and solve out some of these problems without violence, which is wonderful to see at the start here.
Yeah, so all these little boys are messing around, playing tag and doing stuff. And Ender gets on with the nets. It's basically his desk. He figures out how to unlock his locker because it has like a biometric unlock. And then he figures out his desk and how to put security on it because he figures out right away, oh, there's not enough on here.
Right.
He just gets that and he takes care of it well ahead. It doesn't mean other kids never figure that out. He's just way ahead.
Yeah.
And here's a quote from Graf when Ender's talking to him. He says, human beings are free except when humanity needs them. Maybe humanity needs you to do something. Maybe humanity needs me, Graf, to find out what you're good for. We might both do despicable things, Ender, but if humankind survives, then we were good tools. And he says that's a half-truth. You can worry about the other half after we win the war. This is what's driving all their political and activities and their schooling, and they want to see him excel, not make friends, none of that. They don't care about that. They want to see him excel.
And Ender does at everything he does. This is also the point where I think we get introduced to the game room. Video games. As a child of the 90s, these were a big deal.
Yeah. This was written, I think, for gamers. This is their moment.
There's a game room for recreation, but like everything at the battle school, there's also learning. There's also, shaping associated with it. And so Ender goes to the game room, and in the game room, it's not just the little kids. It's all sorts of kids. And so the little kids are playing their kind of little kid games, but Ender's not going to hang out there. He goes to where the bigger kids are playing, and he watches some of these games that they're playing. The one they describe reminds me a little bit of like Dig Dug. I don't know if you remember playing that game or some of these older ones, but he watches and he kind of thinks, hey, I could be good at that. And so he finds a kid and challenges him to the best 2 out of 3. The first game, Ender is struggling with the controls a little bit. He has to learn them, but he smokes him. Game 2 out of 3. And immediately everyone knows the name of Ender Wiggin from really the very beginning there.
Yeah. So a fun little thing I learned about this. Well, 2. One is we haven't mentioned the battle room yet.
Not yet.
And so Space School is all about the battle room. But this was originally a short story written just about the battle room. And it got turned into a novel. And the second thing is this is Marine Corps required reading. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
I didn't either. And I'm like, no way. It totally is. Because there are so many elements of leadership and strategy and just thinking outside the box. So I thought that was really, go Ender.
Yeah, go Ender.
Because the other thing about the game room is he doesn't just jump in there and make an idiot of himself. He watches. He's really patient, actually. He doesn't show his cards too soon. He's really strategic in his timing. But yeah, he totally smokes that kid.
Ender continues to struggle with bullies. He continues to work on all the things that are expected of him. He continues to excel at the things he does, but this is where he also starts, again, making some friends, but the school is very good about making sure he doesn't get to have friends, that he doesn't get to keep good friends. So Ender doesn't stay with the little kids for long.
They do, as launchies, get to go into the battle room.
Let's talk about the battle room.
Yeah, it's really the hub and the game. So there is the game room where there's controlled games, but the battle room is a zero gravity competition ring. It's pretty cool. Here, why don't you tell us about it?
It's awesome. It's zero gravity. There's actually, I think, 9 different battle rooms that circle around in the middle of this orbiting space station, and it's a place for zero gravity combat. They have these suits that they can wear. I mean, oxygen and stuff isn't an issue. That's all there. It's a perfectly safe place in that sense. They have the special outfits they wear to go in there, and they're given these blaster guns that shoot basically a ray of light. So they're not dangerous. They're not going to harm anybody. But when they shoot someone, the part that they shoot freezes. So if you get shot in the leg freezes. If you get shot in the arm freezes. If enough of you gets frozen or you take a direct strike to the head or the chest, you're totally frozen and then you're out. You're incapacitated. You're done. And this is the game that they all live for. As you go higher in this school, you're assigned to different armies that then compete in this game to try and see who is best in this combat scenario. They can change the battle room. They can put these floating obstacles and obstructions in different parts around it, the stars. And it's a massive game of strategy and combat. And as you said, they get to discover it. The launchies get to discover it on their own. And much like every other situation, Ender watches, he learns, but he also is willing to try things. He's willing to kind of throw himself at it and figure, okay, how do I do this? And like just about every other situation, he picks up zero gravity and the battle room quicker than anyone else around him.
And it is how he makes a friend that sticks with him through battle school, even though they're no longer together, because obviously Ender's going to get promoted super fast. There's this kid named Alai. I don't know how you say his name. Alai. And he is more adventurous than the others as well. They dump the launchies into the zero gravity. They tell him nothing. And so everyone's just kind of hanging onto the wall because there's these little rings, except for Ender, who's kind of figuring it out. Because you do look ridiculous, right? If you don't know how to propel yourself or catch yourself. But he ends up pairing up with Alai to figure it out. And so Alai sees that Ender has skills and can help him because he's there to be a soldier too. And Ender's like, okay, we're going to try this, do that. And, you shoot my leg, I'll shoot yours. They figure it out together, experimenting or like, let's meet over in that corner. The thing has always stuck with me since I read this as a kid is the enemy's gate is down.
Yes.
That comes up way more later when they're actually doing battles. But from the beginning, Ender's wrapping his head around, well, if there's no gravity, it doesn't matter which way I'm pointed. It doesn't matter which way we came in. So wherever the enemy's gate is down. And then you can orient yourself north, south, east, west. So brilliant. He's so smart.
This totally reminds me of the Star Trek movie Wrath of Khan.
Okay, which part?
When they're lost in the cloud and Khan is hunting them down and Spock tells Kirk his flight pattern shows two-dimensional thinking.
Fair.
And Kirk beats him because he can think three-dimensionally. That's the way I feel with Ender here. He's able to change his view and he's able to deal with the zero-gravity environment masterfully.
I too have a Spock reference in this book, but it's later, so we'll get there.
Looking forward to it.
So, yes, Ender is rocking the launchies group. He's moved ahead, what is it, like a month? I mean, he's not there hardly any time at all.
Yeah, barely at all.
But he's promoted to the Salamander Army. I like the lights in the battle school. They know where to go and like where their spaces are when it's time to go to class or to the mess hall, whatever, by the lights on the floor. So Salamander's like pink, brown, or there's some order and coloring. And I like that. That's just so clever.
I love that too.
Each army has their own color system.
The other thing I love right before as he's promoted, as he learns that he's being promoted, this is where we do see that he has made a friend. Because this is where Alai, I don't know how to pronounce it either, comes up to him, hugs him, and says, Salam. And this is where we learn that he's Arabic. He is speaking peace onto Ender. And this means so much to Ender, who's lonely and scared and isolated. To know that he had this friend in the launch group is really important for him. And
religion is not allowed as a thing. They talk about, I think his mom was Mormon and his dad was Catholic or something. Oh, that's right. His dad was Catholic and they had 9 children. And he was ashamed of it because it violated the population rules. And so he actually broke off with his family because they had so many kids. And so for them to ask his dad and mom to have a 3rd child was a big deal to them personally. That is what we learn about it, but about his parents. But yeah, religion for Alai to do this sign of peace and show such vulnerability to Ender. He carries that with him. So good.
In Salamander Army, we meet all sorts of different people. In Salamander Army, this is where the game becomes a thing. because he's now in an army. And this is what every student at the school lives for, to see their names on the leadership boards, to see the team statistics, to try and work their way up through the ranks. Salamander Army, we quickly learn, is somewhere kind of in the middle. And it is led by a guy named Bonzo. Is that how it was
So
pronounced?
Madrid, a Spanish gentleman, or so he thinks.
Very Spanish.
Yes.
And he is not a great leader. Part of what we see from the very beginning is Ender is watching these other leaders to see how they interact, how they manage their armies. And Bonzo is not great, and he is furious to have Ender in his army.
Yeah, he did not want him. And Ender does not play by his rules. Because Ender finally gets to be in a battle. He's excited to go. It's a big deal. And Bonzo says, nope, you stay outside.
Yeah, wait outside for 4 minutes and then come in. Don't pull your weapon. Don't do anything. Just come in after 4 minutes. And he won't use him. He won't use Ender as any sort of tool, as any sort of anything. And he's very clear that he's going to try and trade Ender out as fast as he can to try and get him into another army. So the initial actions with the commander of Salamander Army do not go well. But Ender starts meeting other people, and he makes another friend right off the bat.
Yeah, it's a girl named Petra, and she's kind of an outcast herself, but she is the best shot in Salamander Army.
Sharpshooter.
A sharpshooter. And so Ender knows why he's there. He's there to learn and improve and become the best. And so being stuck on the outside, it's disgraceful, and it's a terrible idea, terrible leadership. But he does start training with Petra, and he watches. He watches what Bonzo chooses to do, and he won't violate an order to start. There is a battle where he could have won it for them because nobody notices him. He comes in late, and there's specific rules about how you open the enemy's gate to win. He could have won it for them. They wouldn't have had enough guys to win it.
So Petra starts working with him, though, because they can go into the battle room during their free time, during their spare time. And so she starts training him. She starts giving him good habits in terms of shooting and marksmanship, teaches him things that he couldn't learn without being in this null gravity environment and working through it. He soaks this up. He learns as much as he can. Bonzo becomes furious about this and orders him to not do it. He says, you cannot do this, because he just wants Ender out. He doesn't want him to succeed or anything. Ender really shows a tremendous amount of tact here. He asks Bonzo, may I speak with you in private? Apparently this is something they're all allowed to do, and it must be granted. And he tells him, look, I know you're trying to get rid of me. That's fine. The more I train, the easier it'll be for you to get rid of me. I'm going to do this, and you can't stop me. He then says, I will act like you talked me out of it. I will act like you defeated me here, so you can tell them you change your mind tomorrow so you don't look bad. He really handles this really, really well. Bonzo, though, is just furious. He is just a hothead, and I love this line here. It says, he could see Bonzo's anger growing hot. Hot anger was bad. Ender's anger was cold, and he could use it. Bonzo's was hot, so it used him. And we see that play out here in this situation, and it works out exactly as Ender wants it to, because he is allowed to continue training with Petra. One other thing, if I can say about the battle room, is Ender needs other people to train with. Petra is willing to train with him, but no one else is at all, and so Ender comes up with a solution. He goes back to his launch class, and he brings the little kids out to train with him in the battle room. So now he's got a whole team of people that are working with him as he's trying to figure this out, and he's able to practice tactics and things that he's watching in Salamander Army and the other armies. He's able to actually utilize it with this group of launchies. And one of the fun things about it is, since they don't really know what they're doing, they come up with all sorts of stuff. They're willing to do things that, because they don't have training, and Ender's able to watch and learn and utilize some of this stuff. And it's just cool.
I like how they end up freezing their own legs because it makes them a smaller target. Because then if somebody shoots them from below, it just hits their legs that are already frozen. So they actually use their own flash suits as a defense. That's so smart. Oh my gosh. I'm impressed because I am not a out of the box thinker like that, innovative, and the number of clever ideas that are detailed in this. There's a lot,
Yeah.
and it's really cool. And the description of the zero gravity and how they move around and navigate is really good as well. You got to read it to get those because they're detailed.
We will talk about a few of the battles here in a little bit, but first, I think we should go back to the game room.
Yeah, so there's two big pieces of the school. There's the battle room, which is the game that everybody gets consumed with, and the armies and the status and the ranking. But then there's that video game room. And Ender quickly gets too good for all the video games except one. And I think of it as the Giants game, but it's this whole world that is manipulated by you how you play it. And you die a lot. And you get like 2 lives, then you go back further and back further, but you can keep coming back. But he gets stuck on something, and Ender doesn't often get stuck on things, so he keeps coming back. And you see the adults being like, this might be kind of a problem. He's a little obsessed with this giant, but it's a giant. He jumps up on this table, and there's this giant who offers him a drink, and there's 2 drinks, and they're both poisoned.
And I think he turns into a mouse. I
And
think
he's a
Ender is a
mouse.
mouse on the table with the giant and the 2 drinks.
And no matter what he does or what he tries, no matter what he drinks and attempts, he dies. And eventually, he gets so sick of this giant, he jumps into its eye and Mouse eats it away. It's really gross, but it works. He kills this giant. Nobody's ever beaten the giant. And we learned that from the adult's perspective. Ender doesn't know that. I don't know that he even cares. He's just in this game and it's rippling around him. So he is in this whole new thing. But he defeats the giant. And now when he comes back, he doesn't have to defeat the giant anymore. It becomes this home. Eventually, like dwarves build up a house in its rib cage. It's really interesting. But it takes him into this whole new level of the game. And we'll come back to that because that's what he does. He kind of beats one big thing and gets stuck on. And then we go back to the battle room.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. Well, with all the training Ender is doing, turns out he's pretty good, not surprisingly, and we see Ender's development as a soldier here. The very first battle he goes into, where he's commanded not to do anything, he gets partially frozen, but then he's been told not to raise his weapon, he's been retold not to do anything, so he's just floating around half frozen. The other army wins, but what that means is Ender shows up on the stat boards as not having been killed. So he's the top of all the leaderboards.
100%.
Since he never fired his weapon, he has no misses. So he has the best marksmanship. I mean, he is number 1 on the leaderboard. And this drives Bonzo nuts. But
It's fair.
It keeps happening until eventually Bonzo gets his wish and he is transferred to Rat Army.
I will say Ender really puts it over the top, shaming Bonzo, because he does finally break an order.
He turns it into a draw. So to win these battles, there's a gate. And the whole point is one of your team has to go through the gate. To do that, 4 team members have to put their helmets against the 4 corners of the gate before the 5th can walk through. So you need 5 surviving members to win a game. So if the game ends up where there's less than 5, then it's a draw from both teams. So in this last battle that Ender actually fires, and by now he's a pretty good sharpshooter because he's been training, there are only 5 of the enemy players left. And so by freezing even just one of them, he stops them from being able to win the game, and it turns it into a draw for Salamander Army.
Yeah, so Bonzo is officially an enemy. Ender has a couple friends from the past now, but he also has an enemy. But yeah, then he is transferred to Rat Army. So no more Salamander, new colors, Rat Army. It's commanded by a guy named Rose the Nose. What's it called? I love the pigeon languages that they come up with. They have their own vernacular and way of speaking, and Ender kind of flows in and out of it depending who he's talking to. Because again, like Valentine, he has that empathy and understanding of how to navigate, and so he flows in and out. Other kids do it more, but he's in Rat Army because Rose the Nose is not a great commander, but he does have a lieutenant, or I don't know.
A platoon commander.
A platoon commander named Dink Meeker, and Dink is excellent. And he asked for Ender. He's paying attention.
Dink beats to his own drum. Dink takes his platoon, and when the rest of the army is training or doing whatever they do, Dink is doing what he does with his team. And he brings Ender into it. He brings Ender's ideas into it. And Ender all of a sudden gets to be part of the platoon. And Ender, it says he's not number one anymore after a little while because he's actually in combat and shooting and freezing. So he drops down, I think, to third and then goes to second. And then goes to number one again.
It was a very short time. He's very good.
One of the things we learn about Dink, though, is he's a complex character. Command weighs on him. What's going on in this battle school weighs on him. Now, when I first read this book, I was a young kid, and to me it was just exciting. Oh, how cool would that be to be in the school and doing these battle games, and it was just fun. But when you take a step back, these are children.
Yeah.
Children training to be soldiers, engaged in violence for defense of humanity against an alien incursion.
Yeah. All the pressure, not a little pressure, all of it. And Ender is, 7 years old.
Made into a fanatic. I mean, that's what they're doing about all these kids. Dink gets this. So it talks about after one, I can't remember if it was a battle or a training session, where Dink usually hung out. He would stay when everyone left. Well, Ender wanted to know what he was doing. Why was he staying there? And so Ender didn't leave. He stayed and watched him. And Dink kept waiting for Ender to go, and Ender wouldn't go. And finally, Dink says, whatever. And he takes off his suit and then just goes and floats in the zero gravity, just like meditation release. And he talks with Ender, and this is one of the conversations where Dink expresses some of the turmoil, some of the frustration, some of just the insanity of what's going on. We learned that Dink has been offered command. He's been offered his own army, and he's refused to do it. He's always turned it down. So he clearly loves the game. I mean, he's great at the game, but there is something about this whole military complex that just he can't buy in a full way.
I'm glad somebody's thinking about it because it is really messed up.
Mm-hmm.
Dink, when he's talking to him, basically says, hey, don't listen to me. I'm crazy. That's why I float out here. And then crazy floats out of me. But he's like, you know what, Ender? You're crazy too. We all are here. And let's go get something to eat. Because he too is a child and it does weigh on him. But he can't wrap his head around it. He can't fix it. And he does love the game. So there's a certain point that he goes to and then kind of releases it. But Ender tucks this stuff away because he does think about it.
Yeah.
I think at this point, we actually switch from Ender and we go see how his siblings are doing on Earth. His sister is lighting a little fire for him on his birthday. And she's the only person who remembers his birthday. It's from her perspective that maybe the smoke will float all the way up, even to battle school for Ender. Because there's zero communication. Talks about how they wrote letters for a while. She especially wrote letters. Zero response ever. And so eventually she stopped. But she still lights a fire and remembers his birthday. But then we learn about Peter. And as you say, Peter still is very manipulative. At school, he is the shining student. He can get what he wants. But he's also brutal and gross. He tortures animals in the woods. They moved to the woods so that he could be out in nature more, and maybe this would help soften him. This was a choice that his parents made. And for Valentine, that means, well, if Ender came back, he wouldn't be able to find us. So that was a hard choice for her. But they do it for Peter. And then Peter comes to her with a proposition.
Yeah, this seems crazy and out of nowhere. We have been following Ender for a while now, and we can all see how awesome Ender is, how he can step into just about any environment and succeed. But I, anyway, had forgotten about his siblings, those that share so many of his characteristics, but couldn't be what they needed Ender to be because they had either a deficit or an excess in some way. Well, they're still ridiculously intelligent, talented, and Peter, anyway, is ambitious. What he wants in life is control. He wants rule.
Power.
But he also has a gift for seeing what he needs to do to get there, how to accomplish what he wants accomplished. And he knows he can't do it alone. He knows that Valentine has strengths that he needs. So this makes sense if you think about it. If Ender is awesome because he's this blending of Valentine and Peter, well, what if you blend Valentine and Peter? And this is what Peter does. He basically offers a truce with Valentine and says, "Do you know what's going on in the world?" They're watching the Nets, which is so cute because this is before the internet was a thing. But that's essentially what they're following. And Peter is seeing that the world is about to go up in flames. The world is united against this alien invasion, but the aliens haven't been back for a while. And underneath that unity of fear, there's still the individual groups, the big ones being essentially America and then the Warsaw Pact from Russia. And he's starting to see that these different international powers are moving forces, are moving goods in order to prepare for world conquest once the aliens are dealt with.
They're exceptional hackers. He's been tracking troop movements and supply movements across the world. I mean, he is good.
Yeah. And so what's his plan here? How is he going to take over?
It's interesting. They're basically bloggers.
They're influencers
They're
before
influencers.
influencing was a thing.
And he's like, yeah, we're going to practice. We're going to get good at it. But I see the path and you know how to get us there. It's basically us together. We can make this happen. She knows he's manipulating her and even wonders about his strange thing, like torturing the animals or issues at school. If he puts that on as a show or if it was real or some mix, she doesn't know. But she's like, yeah, we could do that. They know they're exceptional. And so they come up with these two pseudonyms.
Locke and Demosthenes.
So John Locke, right? And Demosthenes. They start with practice ones and they kill him off. I mean, they just don't use them anymore. But they get their dad to get them on like a legitimate license so they can't be tracked. They come up with some story about it.
And so they can be on the adult webs because up till then, anonymously or with their child accounts, they can't be on these adult webs. And I love the way she talks them into doing this. She convinces them that Peter is so lonely and so brilliant that he needs to have interaction with people who are as smart as him, and the kids just aren't as smart as him. And this is how they talk their dad into putting them on his account.
Yeah, and then they can hide it basically once they're on the adult webs. And they're so good at it. So once they stop sounding like kids and they rate each other and they learn and they research, but they are news pundits. And yeah, they influence people with their words and they influence with their articles on things. It's interesting that Locke has a lot more Valentine's perspective on things, but Peter writes for Locke.
Mm-hmm.
And Demosthenes is a lot more like Peter's attitude, but Valentine writes that one.
So they need each other. So the one can't write without the other. So they work together. These two that have been enemies who Valentine anyway has certainly been scared of Peter. They all of a sudden are in this together and they need each other in order to write the piece because since it is the other person's character, they need them to fill that into it. And they just keep going with it.
They keep going and they build a platform and we'll come back to them. But it's this massive side story about them shaping Earth's politics while Ender's up in space, winning wars. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so back to Ender. He then gets assigned his own army.
He is promoted. And what's funny about this one is when he got promoted from the launch group, everyone was like, oh man, that's fast. That's early. Why are you getting promoted? At this point, he's been top of the boards for so long that everyone's, well, it's about time, even though he's like 2 years younger than a commander would normally get appointed to an army.
I think Graf says at some point it took that long because he was pulling together his army. What's funny, though, is they're terrible. He intentionally picks a bad team for Ender.
And it's a new army. Well, it's a resurrected army. So how cool is this? He becomes the commander of, if I could pick an army name, Dragon Army. And that sounds just awesome. But I guess in the history of the school, Dragon Army has always been cursed. No army named Dragon Army has ever been worth anything. So they institute this new army, Dragon Army, Ender's in charge, and they bring together this group of misfits and no veterans and just worthless people, basically.
Yeah, none of them have any experience. One in particular is called, his name is Bean, and he's really small and he's really young, and Ender picks on him, which is, he even wonders in his own head, why am I doing this? Because he's a great leader to all of them. He teaches them innovation. He teaches them how to move fast. He teaches them how to be creative. But Bean, he picks on. He makes the other ones hate him, just like they had done to Ender. Ender could make it, and he sees that Bean can make it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that it's all positive, but there are positives out of it because Bean, too, is exceptional.
Oh, he's a rock star. He is incredible. And we see what Ender can do given command, and it's amazing. And let's talk just a little bit about strategy and the battle room, because I love the battle room. Up until this point, the entire concept of battle has been based on the idea of formations. These armies would gather in these big fixed formations, and that's how they would fight and encounter and engage. Think, the Redcoat British Army standing up and fighting against the French. Think the Macedonian phalanx marching in order. Think the Roman legions marching in order. This was the way battles were fought in the battle room. Well, along comes Ender, and Ender realizes this is ridiculous. And so he starts breaking his force into smaller groups. And more than that, he starts giving autonomous command to his platoon leaders. They don't require him. They can see what needs to be done. They can move faster, they can move quicker, they can make independent decisions, and they wreck the other armies. He then takes people like Bean, who is brilliant and can come up with just harebrained schemes, and says, I want you to come up with harebrained schemes. He sets him to come up with creative new tactics, new techniques, things nobody would think of. And they do. They come up with all sorts of these things. And by the first battle, Ender's army is just unbeatable. What's interesting is we also get the discussions between the grown-ups again. And what you see are happening is that they are actually not going to be fair to Ender. The goal has never been to be fair to Ender. The goal is to get him ready and to get him prepared. And so one of the guys is actually tasked to come up with a series of algorithms that the computer generates to bring Ender to peak military fitness as a commander. It's intense. And again, this is not going to be fair.
It sounds really nice, but really, they're trying to get him to fail. I don't think they're hoping he'll fail. They want him to be an exceptional commander and leader, but they really try anything they can think of to just wreck the guy.
And they kind of go back and forth on this one. They talk about how this isn't right, this isn't fair. And this is in many ways where I think the second big twist of the book comes. I think the first big twist is with Valentine and Peter, how them coming together. I don't think anyone expected that to happen. That came out of nowhere. But the second big twist goes to the fact that, again, there have been 2 bugger species invasions, and they're all waiting for the third. And the expectation is that the buggers are going to come back and going to invade again, and we have to be ready for it. Here is where we learn that's not the case. Quote, if Ender isn't the one, if his peak of military brilliance does not coincide with the arrival of our fleet at the bugger homeworlds, then it doesn't really matter what our trading method is or isn't. End quote. The buggers aren't invading Earth. Earth is invading the buggers' homeworld, and they need a commander for the fleet because the fleet is already on the way.
And it's going to take a long time to get there. And so they had to time it perfectly to have someone ready.
It's decades, because we're talking light speed travel, and this blew my mind. So it's not defense. They're not waiting. They are going to take on the buggers in their homeworld, and this is what they are prepping Ender for.
But he still doesn't know.
No,
we know he doesn't know. So it's getting harder and harder. They put him into battle, his army into battle like months before a typical commander would need to do it. Sometimes they have more than one a day. They really set him up to fail. Sometimes they'll have I think it's Bonzo's army that gets to be in the room before Ender's even gets there. So Bean comes up with this awesome thing where he uses like a tether, and they can like whip each other around using their own propulsion. It's amazing. And somehow he wins, even though they're already there. And this is another way Ender infuriates his old enemy, Bonzo, even more, is that he beats him when Bonzo should have just destroyed him. He was in the room already, made a poor choice in formation. So as soon as they got past his line, Bonzo's line, they took him out. And Ender's just disgusted with the whole thing, that they would do this and that's how they'd respond. And so he shuts the game off quickly. He doesn't do the protocol where you go through the enemy's gate and the lights come on and you like shake a hand or something of the other commander. There's a process and a protocol. He's disgusted with the whole thing, skips it all, storms off, and then realizes, oh, that was probably insulting.
Yeah, but he was so angry at the teachers.
Yeah.
Because at this point, he's starting to see the teachers as the enemy, not the other armies. It's the teachers that are setting up this unfair thing, and definitely made a mistake there in terms of his treatment of Bonzo at that point.
The other thing that's happening is Ender still goes back to play the giant game, but the giant now is long decayed, and he's at this next level. He goes through this playground, and there's these wolf children. It's really messed up. But these things are supposed to be, they're computer generated, but things of his mind, and it interacts with him and how he responds. But he ends up at the end of the world. There's a sign. The end of the world. And he goes there. There's like a shelf, and he jumps off a cliff, and a cloud carries him to a castle turret. And in it, there's a snake.
Go ahead and talk about the snake.
Well,
the snake is a carpet initially.
Yeah.
So this all has a very dream-like quality about it. And so I picture one of those wrapped carpets with the different cords around it that all of a sudden turns into this really long snake.
And he can't get past the snake. But like the giant's drink, it takes him a long time to get past it. So he's always at the end of the world, and he gets stuck on the snake and trying to get past the snake.
And he does all sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he kills the snake. That's not hard. He's able to, without hesitation, he stomps on his head and kills it. But there's one other thing in the room. There's a mirror. And when he looks in the mirror, who does he see? He sees his brother, Peter. Initially, when he first sees it, Peter is eating a snake. It's going in his mouth. And so whatever he does, it doesn't matter. Little snakes come out and bite him. The big snake bites him. It's this ongoing thing that he just can't get past.
Yeah, but seeing his reflection as Peter freaks him out big time, because he's never wanted to be Peter.
Yeah.
It breaks his heart, really. And then we see it from the teacher's perspective and the admiral. And he asks, where did that picture of Peter come from? There is no way we could have gotten it. How did the computer get that picture? And they don't have a good answer. There is a quote about the game and Peter in the Mirror. It says, the mind game is a relationship between the child and the computer. Together, they create stories. The stories are true in the sense that they reflect the reality of the child's life. That's all I know. It gives me chills, actually. He hates the idea that he is turning into Peter.
And he fears that he has, with the amount of violence he's been forced to do. And it's horrific for him. And this really becomes kind of a plateau for Ender. He's still undefeatable in battle. He's still incredible in the battle room, but the staff are worried. And so they go and get some help.
Yeah, they use Valentine to send him a letter that basically asks her to convince him to stick with it, to keep going. He is in despair. I mean, he is about to give it all up. He doesn't care about the game anymore. But she sends him a letter that's clearly from her, which is pretty good if you think about like how much manipulation, and you never know what's true and what isn't, that she can write a letter that he knows is from her. I like how she spells psychoanalyze, like in a funny way that he'd get. But she does it because he loves her that much. It does. It also breaks him because it means he has to keep doing this thing. So even this one person that he truly loves is used as a tool to get him to keep going.
It also breaks Valentine a little
Yeah.
bit because it's Colonel Graff that flies down to Earth to meet with her. And she's worried because she thinks she's been found out
Yeah.
because she and Peter have been up to some stuff. But no, it's all about Ender and Ender's psyche and trying to get him through. And it is actually Valentine that talks to Colonel Graff about Peter and about Ender's fear of Peter and about how that all plays out. Then she writes the letter.
And then she's still writing as Demosthenes, and she's getting really good at it. And that's freaking her out too, because
Yeah.
I mean, she sounds more like Peter. And her quote is, "Perhaps it's impossible to wear an identity without becoming what you pretend to be."
I love that quote. I have that one marked too. It's so good.
It is good, and I think that's Ender's struggle as well.
Ender goes back to the game after receiving this letter, and he solves the problem. He doesn't know what he's going to do, near as I can tell, when he goes in there, because he's angry. He's heartbroken. He's furious. He goes in there. The snake is there. Initially thought he was going to let the snake just bite him, because he was just done. But instead, he does something different. He kisses the snake.
It's funny that made you smile. Kissing a snake. I thought you'd be all grossed out.
I am, but it's beautiful.
It
It
is.
really is beautiful because Ender is in conflict. Ender has been made a tool. He knows he's a tool. He's honed, he's weaponized, it's what he is. But he is still that empathetic, sweet little kid. And he kisses the snake.
Then what happens?
He gets through the end of the world.
He's through the end
He's
of the
through the
world.
end of the world. And the grown-ups are really alarmed at this because the game was not meant to do this. They don't know what's next. What's coming on? Well, what's next for Ender are a couple of different things. One is he has made enemies.
Yeah, and for the first time, they always pass him a little note when he has a battle coming up, and it's always, you have 10 minutes, ready, go. This time, it's against 2 armies. So Dragon Army is going to face 2 armies, and it's just absurd. So he pulls a truly Ender solution out because he sees it's unwinnable. They're outnumbered, and they have no time to prepare. They get in there, and so, like you mentioned, the tunes. He has these small units that move around. They're much more nimble. He basically distracts the main armies, and he sends Bean's team down because nobody ever really said you couldn't do it. You need 4 guys to put their helmets on the corners and 1 guy to walk through. Game over.
And I loved it to start this all. So the other armies are there. They're in defensible positions. Like you said, it's unwinnable. Ender looks at it and then kind of giggles and turns around and is like, all right, time to make a formation.
Yeah, that's
He's
right.
done his entire success has been destroying formations. Formations are bulky and wrong. They don't work. They don't happen. Well, it's time to do a formation. And his whole army is like, what are you talking about? This isn't what we do. And he says, well, come on. Every good army knows how to do a formation. And they
Step in line.
do. And that formation then is what draws all the fire of the other armies while Bean and his team
They
win.
push the enemy's gate open. Game over. It's, I mean, it's kind of a mic drop moment. He just did it.
He won the unwinnable battle.
He did. It is the Kobayashi Maru.
Mm-hmm.
He's Kirk cheating,
But without cheating.
but without cheating.
He
Nobody
just
ever said.
Did it. He thought in a way that could make it work.
But then the teachers show up and are like, oh, actually, we're adding a rule that you can't do that. You have to have some percentage of frozen armies. And they make it so complicated. He's like, no, we won that battle. This also angers Bonzo.
Yeah.
And this kid, I mean, he's much older than Ender, but he's still, 15 or 16. And he's just done. And so he, like you said, is a story with bullies. And he collects a group of other enemies Ender has made in this time, and they're gonna hurt him. So Ender goes to take a shower.
He's in the shower room. He's all soaped up. And he's alone. He's been warned to not be alone because people know that he has enemies. But he is so angry, so frustrated that he's just going to take a shower. And while he's there naked and alone and covered in soap, he hears something and he turns around and he is surrounded. There's like 6 or 7, I mean, big
Big
kids
kids.
there.
Yeah.
The door is closed. Somebody actually runs to the door to try and help him, and it's Dink.
It's Dink. Yeah.
Dink, his old platoon commander, comes in, but the bullies are they take him out. They're not going to let him near or anything around. And Ender is in trouble, and really in trouble for his life. Ender knows he can't take on 7 at once, but he also knows the one that hates him the most in this group is Bonzo. He also knows that Bonzo has some concept of honor, and so he challenges him. Says, you got all these big guys to come take out one naked little kid. That's what you're going to do. Where's your honor? Bonzo bites. He decides that he is going to do this himself. So Bonzo strips down and they go at it. Ender is efficient. Ender is brutal, and Ender ends this quickly.
And it's similar as with the Stilson boy at the beginning, where he doesn't just want to end this battle. He wants to win all of them and not have this happen again. So he takes him out, and it is hard to read and hard to imagine. But this little boy who hates hurting people is really good at it. So Bones is on the floor. He leaves.
Yeah. And then the teachers come.
Yeah.
Because the teachers were not going to step in because Ender has to solve his own problems. At this point, Ender is done. He doesn't care about the game. He doesn't care about the school. He is not going to do this anymore. And it's at this point that he gets his next promotion.
Yeah, he gets orders to go to command school. He gets promoted after leaving a boy bleeding in the shower. I mean, it's crazy. But he does get a reprieve. He gets a break on Earth. And so next time we see Ender, he's at a lake house, and he built a raft on this lake. He made something with his hands. But they bring Valentine to see him because, again, he doesn't care. He's not invested. He's kind of done. And again, they use the person that he loves to push him toward it. And she knows that too. She knows what's happening. That, hey, Peter and I are doing this thing on Earth where we got some power now. I mean, they're getting invited to like presidential councils. It's interesting because Demosthenes, Valentine, she's so good at writing him now. He's more popular.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's talk a little bit about Demosthenes.
Yes, please.
And Locke.
Locke and Demosthenes, what perfect picks for these two alter egos. Locke, the great political scientist, the great humanist philosopher, the father in many ways of modern liberalism, the guy who championed religious liberty, the guy that the early founders of America thought was one of the most important minds. This was the role that Peter took. And he really embodies all those things. He's the mediator. He's the moderate. He's the peacemaker. He's the negotiator. Now, that ain't Peter, but that's who Locke is.
Yeah, and I wrote down a couple things just of his. So, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Sound familiar? I mean, that's based off John Locke. Also, the social contract. We talked about that, I think, in the Ball and the Cross episode.
Yes, we did.
But yeah, this idea that there's a rules base, I comply a certain way and you do certain things. There's a contract between us. Also, I didn't know this one, the tabula rasa.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that was from him.
Tabula rasa is blank slate. So his theory of mind was that we are all born with a blank slate and that all our personality, thoughts, knowledge, everything is then imprinted on this tabula rasa.
Yeah, and here's the John Locke quote I think sums it up for him is, where there is no law, there is no freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, a lot of our founding fathers, Declaration of Independence, Constitution, based off John Locke. And then there's Demosthenes, which they bring him up, that name up in pairing with Pericles, who, I love this. We talked about Pericles back with Alcibiades, so we're getting the ancient Greeks in here too. But he was a statesman after the time of Pericles, but again, really famous in that way. But what did he talk about?
Well, I first learned about Demosthenes from My Fair Lady.
Oh, yeah.
When Henry Higgins is teaching Eliza to speak and makes her hold marbles in her mouth. And he says, if it was good enough for Demosthenes, it's good enough for you. Demosthenes is the great orator of Greek history. He was the speaker. He was renowned for standing on the seashore and speaking over the waves so he could be heard, for putting pebbles in his mouth and performing elocution lessons around these stones in his mouth. He was a master rhetorician and a great speaker. What he is known most from history for, though, is a set of writings and speeches he did that are called the Philippics. As you said, Demosthenes came after Pericles, but before Alexander the Great. And Alexander the Great's mighty father was Philip II of Macedon. And it was Philip II who turned Macedon from a backwater pseudo-Greek nation into a world power that was about to go conquer Asia. Before it could conquer Asia, it had to conquer Greece. And Demosthenes saw this coming. And so Demosthenes railed against Philip. He sounded every warning he could about the tyranny of Philip, the danger of Philip. It did no good in the end. No one was going to stop Philip, and certainly no one was going to stop Alexander. But this was Demosthenes' role. This concept of the Philippics, this speaking against a great power, even in a doomed setting, has become a thing. We still talk about Philippics as this diatribe against somebody else. And even later on, when you have Cicero speaking against against Mark Antony, you have the second Philippics named in honor of Demosthenes.
Oh, see, that's way more than I had. I had his focus on ancient freedom, because that was the focus, and to basically not let these superpowers take over their culture. And here's the Demosthenes quote: "The easiest thing of all is to deceive oneself, for what a man wishes, he generally believes to be true." That was really good, actually.
Yeah.
So that is Peter's perspective more, but Valentine writes Demosthenes. So anyway, she's at this lake and telling Ender about what they're doing on Earth, on these two platforms, and they're gaining influence, and it's working, and people are listening, and their goal is power, but also peace, because they see not the bugger war, they see a war on Earth happening.
Mm-hmm.
And what they want to pick up the pieces after. There needs to be shaping after that fact. And so they're influencing on that end. But she's also just listens to Ender, because she's very good at listening to people and understanding how to convince them. But here's Ender's perspective, what he tells Valentine. He says, "I hate myself so badly. And it came down to this. In the moment when I truly understand my enemy, understand him well enough to defeat him, then in that very moment, I also love him. I think it's impossible to really understand somebody, what they want, what they believe, and not love them the way they love themselves. And in that moment, I destroy them." He just left a kid on the ground in battle school. And we find out from the teacher's perspective, Ender's not sure, but he thinks. He's like, "I think I might have killed him. I think he might have been dead." He doesn't know, but it turns out he was. He also had killed Stilson.
Yeah, we learn later that both children died.
But he's right. It's that understanding of what, and then he loves them in that moment, and that's when he destroys them. It's heartbreaking. But she, through empathy, and she tells him, "I'm not afraid of you." And so he goes to command school because his sister isn't afraid of him, even though he is this destructive force. I mean, he's so good at it. But she, in her turn, writes an article and calls it The Third.
Mm-hmm.
And so she basically says how the best title anyone can have on Earth actually is third. And she's like, "This one's for you, Ender."
And she wrote it without Peter.
Yeah.
She had been writing Demosthenes for long enough that she could write in his voice without Peter. Peter thought it was kind of a hoot because it got a reaction, and he liked getting reactions.
So, go ahead.
Oh, no, now command school.
Ender's on his way to command school, and it's interesting, Graf goes with him, and he's a lot chattier now. They talk about how everyone comments on how fat he is now. He's been stress eating because he's trying to make this happen in perfect timing and have Ender ready and through command school in time for the fleet to arrive. So he's got some pressure on him.
They commandeer a spaceship. It's a tug. and the guy steps on it, or Graf steps on it. He hands the navigational tool,
It's the
whatever,
ball
to
thing.
the
It's like
captain. And the
permissions and
captain's
everything.
like, I don't have the clearance to go there. And Graf's like, you're right, you don't. You're going to stay there the rest of your life. Or at least till the
And you
war
have
is
no
over.
choice.
And it takes them like 3 months to get there. So this angry captain is on this boat in space with these 2 guys. And you're right, Ender and Graf chat, they talk. And Ender starts to learn some things. This is where he starts to learn about the fleet. This is where he learns about what they're trying to do. This is also where we learn a couple other sort of space tech things. This is where we learn about the Ansible. The Ansible is a cool concept. So if you're traveling at light speed or near light speed, time does strange things. It just does. And that gets incorporated into this. But you have to have a way of communicating. How could you command this fleet if you couldn't do it? So the MacGuffin they come up with is the Ansible. It's a way of communicating with the fleet across the universe, across light distances in instant time.
So yeah, the Ansible is just a thing that the fleet is taking however many decades and has to be in fighting shape when they get to the bugger world. But yeah, they can communicate on any given moment with the fleet wherever they're at. So yeah, but he gets to command school. Ender doesn't like it. It's weird. It's shaped funny. It has funny, like everything feels like a little too low and wide. It's just this odd place. And but there's a lot of people there, which is surprising.
Mm-hmm.
But he starts his training on the simulator.
The games start again.
The game.
There's all sorts of games he's playing, and these are very different. He starts on the simulator commanding a ship. So he's on a ship, learning what it can do, what it can't do. And then the games just keep expanding. There are different goals, different targets. Then he's commanding 2 ships, then 3, then 4, then 5, then whole fleets. And there's different objectives, different things you have to accomplish. It keeps getting harder and harder. He aces it. All this is boring for him to the point he actually mentions that to the
Yeah, he
Graf.
tells Graf, he's like, hey, is this ever going to get hard? I got it figured out. And the next day, it changes.
It gets hard.
So throughout this book, he's been watching the videos of the invasions, the first and second invasions. And the commander at the time, his name was Mazer Rackham, which I think is a cool name. Mazer Rackham.
From New Zealand.
Yeah. But he was the one who led the humanity to defeat the buggers. And so Ender's been watching these and trying to figure out what he can about his enemies, the buggers, the Formics. But as soon as he mentions that he's tired of the simulator as it is, a guy shows up in his room. So Graf is gone for the first time in months. And Ender wakes up and there's a guy sitting cross-legged on the ground. He's like, this is weird, but okay. And the guy,
I'm picturing like Indian yogi, like just sitting,
meditating. I don't know, but he doesn't respond. The guy on the ground. So Ender just kind of, but he can't get out either. The door's locked, and so he's kind of doing some exercises or something. And the guy like snatches his ankle out of nowhere and like knocks him down. So Ender's up and ready to fight, but the guy's back to his Zen position. But that doesn't last. He's like, okay, are we fighting? Are we not fighting? But he continues, and then the guy gets him, and he has him trapped. Ender Wiggin says, you beat me. I think that's the only time ever.
Yeah.
Because this guy has him like bent over double, and it turns out it's Mazer Rackham coming to train, and it's kind of the culminating training. Like, there's nothing that's gonna top this.
And I love that they pull it off in a fairly believable way. They say that they knew this was going to happen. They knew they needed Mazer to do this training. So they put him on a ship at the speed of light and have him travel for like 10 years, 20 years. It ends up being much longer, but this is how he can still be alive to train Ender when he comes back.
Yeah, so Ender, through this training, because the simulations get harder now, and he's exhausted and they're constant. And it's getting more difficult. And Mazer's like, yeah, talk to me when you have to step away from your wife. Because his wife and his family aged on Earth while he was traveling in space to help with his training. That's how important this bugger invasion was to these people, to humanity. That's what they believed about humanity's survival.
And Mazer is very clear on this, that he is going to set up all the simulations and he is not going to be kind.
Mhm.
It's going to be harder and harder and harder. It's not going to be fair. But that's the level of importance that they're attributing to it. This is also where we learn about some of the new weapons, and particularly the weapon. Do you want to talk about that one?
Doctor device.
The
Well, it's called
doctor
Doctor.
device?
You go ahead.
The Doctor device is basically a material detonator. The way I picture it is it's kind of a daisy chain type thing where it destroys whatever substance is there, but if there's another substance close, it chains to it, and so it becomes this chain reaction. So it can destroy a fleet. It can destroy anything that's close together. If things are spaced out, the effects are fairly local because it has to chain to other matter. But for matter that is in close enough proximity, it's absolutely devastating.
Yeah, and so Ender asked a lot of questions about this and how the best way to use it, and they talk about the first invasions, like how did you win? Because it's never been clear, and the videos are super edited, and you just see bodies of buggers in the control stations afterward. Like, how did you do it? And Mazer tells him, well, there's a center. And so they start watching videos because nobody else thinks this. Mazer said he's the only one who ever thought so, but they look at the bugger ships moving around, and it turns out they're a hive mind. They have a queen at the center. And so when they kill individual buggers, they weren't behind it. There's a hub, a queen, and they have instantaneous thinking. But it all comes from a source. And it's not obvious. They're very smart. And he does say the buggers learn from the things that we do, just like we learn from them. He's like, how do you think we built this place? We didn't. This is a bugger planet.
That blew my mind when I first read that.
That's why the tunnels all feel weird. They weren't built for humans. The buggers made them. They colonized. But they look at these videos, and they do find, and Ender ends up agreeing with him, that yeah, there is a center ship. It's all coming from there. And so kind of by luck, Mazer took out the hub, the queen ship. And without her, everything, they had no direction. So it was easy cake after that.
Yeah, we start to learn that they don't have a language the way we think of language. It's all telepathic. It's the queen communicating in this hive mind to all the drones that are in all the other ships and things around them. Because of that, the fleets can move ridiculously fast. They're instantaneous. They're as fast as a mind can think it. They're moving in unison and together. But that's also a key point. It's as fast as a mind can think it. They don't work autonomously. They don't work independently. And so there is strength to this, given their speed and their coordination, but there's also weakness because there's a central point of failure and they can never be greater than that one single mind.
Yeah, Mazer tells him, this is a quote, they can only come up with one brilliant solution at a time. So if you have a team of brilliant thinkers, much like Ender in the battle room, right? Where he had the nimble tunes that could make decisions. So he'd guide the direction, but they each had a leader who could think on their own. That's an advantage in battle. So Mazer's helping him recognize this, but the simulators are getting harder and more complex until it changes one day where he's no longer just him fighting. He has a squadron.
He has squadrons. He has fleets. It changes every day. But not only is it him, it's all his lieutenants and platoon leaders. We get to meet Alai again. We get to meet Shen. Bean is back. Petra is back. Dink is back. All these people that he's developed relationships and trained and has been their commander are now his leaders. And in this new simulation, he's not commanding any individual ships. He is commanding fleets, squadrons, whatever shows up for the simulation for the day. Sometimes it's old ships that aren't very good and just a couple of them. Sometimes it's a massive battle squadron. Sometimes it's part of a fleet. Sometimes the goal is to take an outpost. Sometimes it's a space-to-space battle with the buggers. And they do keep getting harder and harder. But what he's doing now is he's using this team around him. And he learns their strength. He knows their strengths and their weaknesses. He talks about how Alai is almost as good as he was. He could basically give him half the fleet and he would be able to handle it. Where Bean was useless in in that setting, but you hand him a couple ships and let him just go nuts, and he's devastating. And he starts going through these simulations that keep getting harder and harder. After every simulation, Mazer does a debrief with him and talks about, well, here's what you screwed up, here's what's wrong, here's what you did right. And he's really learning. He's finally got somebody that he can learn from who is smarter than him, or at least as smart as him.
Yeah, so that's all to the positive, but the difficulties are no joke, and the pressures that weigh on them, and they're exhausted. I mean, they're just coming at them hard. They're all in simulators, so he never sees anybody other than Mazer. He gets to talk to them in these battles, but he's very isolated in that sense. And they're all feeling the strain. And in one of them, a pivotal battle, Petra breaks.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, tell Ender I'm sorry. You know, she's just wrecked. And so he knew this about them, but he, instead of putting more pressure on his leaders, he takes it. And he's near breaking point. But then Mazer talks to him one day. He's like, hey, here we are.
This is your final exam.
No pressure.
This is it. This is the final
All the
exam.
pressure.
Well, he walks into the room and it's packed.
Yeah.
It's not just him. It's not just Mazer. It's not just Colonel Graff. It is packed with people. And they ask him, like, do you mind?
Yeah. Now they're being decent after all. I mean, this kid is to the breaking point.
Yeah.
Anyone else would have just crumpled at this. Ender is amazing. Truly.
He's awesome. And he says, no, I don't care if they're there or not. And he gets into his chair. The simulation starts. And it is so unfair. This is like that last battle in the battle room where there's multiple armies in defensive positions. This seems to be the Bugger homeworld.
Oh, Mazer tells him there's going to be a planet. Twist, because there's never been any kind of object like that. There's been outposts and things, and Ender's just, okay. I mean, every time they change it on him, he just takes it in stride. So he does ask about the gravity, you know, because a planet's big, and
he's thinking about like fuel consumption.
Yeah.
Like, well, that's going to change the way I can use my ships and fuel consumption.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, what he sees is this, it is the entire Bugger fleet. And that's just what he can see in front of the planet.
Well, yeah. So he knew about the planet coming, but then the simulator turns on, and I think he said like 1,000 to 1. I mean, it is just absurdly outnumbered. And like in the battle, he kind of giggles. He's like, really? Are you serious? He's just sick of the games. He's sick of them playing with him. And so he kind of makes a formation.
He makes a formation. And it starts you going down to the planet. And ships are getting dinked off right and left. They're being swarmed. But he gets close enough to use that weapon, the doctor device. Nobody knew what it was going to do to a planet. They'd been using it in space when the Buggers were gathered close enough. It eliminates everything. It's kind of an easy button win once he got close enough, because once that got deployed, it says the planet's surface started to bubble. Everything on the planet was destroyed. All the ships were destroyed. Everything just got knocked out. And kind of like him going for the gate in the battle room, he won. Yeah,
it just leaves this cloud of dust, and he rips off his helmet. You know, he just like the battle. He's done with the games.
Well, he's done, but remember, there's still the real battle to come in his mind.
Oh, I remember the simulation.
Yeah, he's training.
Done with the game.
So can you imagine that this was the training? And this almost broke him. It did break Petra. What was the war going to do? This had to have been going through his mind right now.
But he turns around, and all those people are weeping tears of joy and on their knees praying and hugging, and he is so bewildered. What is going on?
How awful is this? It was not a simulation. These were the fleets. Ender had been commanding these fleets, and he has now committed genocide against the Bugger homeworld planet, thinking he's playing a game. But the adults used him to wipe out this entire race.
And he won. And they're happy. Won. But he's broken. I mean, he basically passes out for days. And they tell him, hey, actually, there's another battle going. Earth is at war. Like I mentioned, all the people living on the base there, they're at war, and he kind of half here, but he doesn't have it in him. He just kind of passes out asleep for like a week, and he wakes up in the dark.
But he's not alone in the dark.
Yeah.
Finally, he's not alone. All his commanders are around him. Ally is there, Petra is there, Bean is there, Dink is there. They're all there, and he's not alone anymore. And he who has been so strong is just weeping and saying, I don't have to be your commander anymore, right? I don't have to be your commander. And the response is beautiful. It says, oh, you don't have to command anything ever again, but you will always be our commander.
Yeah. So it'd be a pretty good spot for the book to end. But that is not where it ends.
No.
It really kind of leads into the sequel that we're not going to talk about today. But there is a wrap up to the book.
Mm-hmm. Peter wins back on Earth. This kid takes power and he becomes the hegemon or hegemon. I don't actually know how it's pronounced. It's an old Greek word that means the leader. And he takes power. And this psychopath evil kid brings peace to the earth. This kid who tortured squirrels and threatened Ender with death stops world war, takes control, and brings peace to the earth. And so you have this while you have this sweet, empathetic, loving kid who loves his enemies at the moment he destroys them has been used as a weapon of violence. Valentine is still in Ender's corner, though. Peter wants to bring Ender back. He wants to bring him back because what a great thing that would be to help cement his power and his authority. But Valentine won't have any of it. She actually blackmails Peter because she's got all the stuff from his past, all the horrible things he did, to promise that Ender doesn't have to come back to Earth. And instead, Valentine and Ender and a few of the others go off to colonize space. All these bugger worlds that are now empty because the entire race is dead are now places where the human race can go settle.
Yeah, they were habitable. Do you like the ending?
I think the ending is fascinating. I think I'll talk about some of my overall thoughts of the book in a minute, but the book would not be as powerful to me if the ending didn't exist.
Yeah, so Valentine convinces Ender to go off into space, and he's trying to wrap his head around genocide. This kid who hates hurting people took out a civilization. And he had more understanding of them than anyone else. He studied them methodically. He knew about them. He's lived in one of their tunnels. I mean, what do you call it? A fort. Mm-hmm. But he does. He goes off with her, and he does develop a community there. And
he's the governor.
He's the governor. There's farmland. They have a helicopter. They brought a lot with them. But time is passing on Earth faster than those who went to colonize. So he takes a young kid with him because they're looking for a secondary place to set up a colony. And other ships on the way from Earth to come colonize. So they want it to be close, but not too far. You know, they want to trade, but not be too close together. So he takes a helicopter and he goes on a little trip on this bugger planet that they have colonized. And it starts to become familiar.
He sees the giant's bones. He sees the pelvis and the rib cage that the dwarves had been building in that game world. Here it is in real life. And he knows where he is, and he knows he has to go find the end of the world.
The end of the world!
And he does. The buggers made this. They made this, and this is where you start to see what Ender's interactions with the Ansible has done. Because the Ansible can travel through this time and space instantly. It's almost a psychic link. Well, that's how the buggers communicate. And we didn't talk about it, but he was having bad dreams where the buggers were in his dreams. They were learning him in the same way he was learning the buggers. And they built this in the hopes that he would come and find it. And he's able through this to communicate with kind of the last queen of the buggers and what the message is. She talks about how when the fleet showed up, they knew that the humans hadn't forgiven them and that they were all going to die. They knew Ender was going to come kill them. And you learn a little bit about bugger history. You learn about the development of the queens. What you then learn is that the queen has left an egg. And in the same place where he had seen Peter's picture in the mirror and had to go behind it to win, he sees the cocooned egg. And Ender now has the future of the buggers with him.
The future and the history, because it is this telepathic conversation with a gentle queen. She did say how there were queens who were not gentle, but this egg was selected specifically. And that when they first killed the humans, they didn't realize the humans were different. They thought it was more that hive mind thing. You kill off some drones. They're not really entities in themselves. They had to learn that.
Mm-hmm.
And so he becomes the speaker for the dead.
He writes a book. He writes a book with all this he's learned about them, and it's very clear that it's the good and the bad. It's essentially a requiem, a telling of the life of the Hive Queen, and this gets published anonymously. Valentine is a historian, and so she's been traveling with him and has been publishing a history. Well, this gets kind of tacked on to the end anonymously, and it becomes a thing.
Oh, yeah.
It essentially becomes a religious text, especially for colonists, but it also makes it back to Earth, where we have Peter. Peter, who has brought peace. I think of him like I think of Augustus Caesar, this fairly terrible guy, but who instituted this thing that brought peace and reigned for a long time. But now Peter's old and dying. He hasn't been traveling at light speed, so he's much older now. And you start to see that Peter wants Ender to love him. He wants Valentine to love him. And he asks for Ender to be his speaker for the dead.
Yeah. Well, he tells Valentine, he's like, I know who wrote that.
Yeah.
Will he write mine?
Yeah. And he does. He writes it. He writes the hegemon. And all the good, all the bad, he writes it. And Peter gets to read it before he dies and is satisfied. And so then these two works, the Hive Queen and the Hegemon, become sacred text, basically, for the human colonies and the human race.
Yeah, so it actually wraps up where he's getting to be too happy. So he's like, let's head out. Because he's never been happy. It's a foreign concept to him. But really, he's looking for a planet for the buggers to regenerate, because he keeps the egg with him.
And that's how the story ends?
It's a big one.
It is such a big one. What struck me this time reading through it is how many stories are involved in this.
Yes.
Whatever lens you choose to read it through, there is a whole story in it. You can read this through the lens of just an adventure. I mean, of a kid who's awesome, who does awesome things,
That's
and
how
then
I
wins
read
a war.
As a kid.
Yeah.
It was a fun read.
As a grown-up and as a dad now, I can also read it as what a horrific demonstration of weaponizing children, of turning children into fanatics and making them warriors. You can also read it, though, as a leadership guide. I mean, incredible lessons on how to get people to do things and function and work as teams and innovate. You can read it as a ends justify the means type of book. I don't personally believe that, but you can read this book in that way.
I have a counterpoint to that, so with some big words. So utilitarianism. See how I said it? That was really good.
Well done.
Which is exactly the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
There's Spock.
There's Spock. In what movie?
Wrath of Khan.
Wrath of Khan. I think it's funny. He's got the Wrath of Khan. But yeah, utilitarianism, and then deontology. So that some things are just wrong, no matter how it turns out. The fleet, if Colonel Graff is the full-blown utilitarian, then I mean they really just sacrifice Ender, to do this thing for them.
He's a weapon. He's a tool. But they love him.
They
Graff
love what he does.
loves him.
Yeah. Because they are very positive that humanity would have been the flip side of that coin, where humanity was going to be taken out by whatever the third invasion. If the buggers came for humans, we were done. But genocide and child abuse and exploitation, I mean, it is rough.
It is rough, but deep.
Yeah.
This is one of those that you could read over and over again, and you could talk about it over and over again and never get the same thing out of it twice. I think that's what makes it such a good story.
Yeah, I have one more we'll mention. Have you heard of the simulation argument?
I have not.
It's by a guy named Nick Bostrom. And it makes me think of like the Matrix, where Ender thinks he's playing a simulation, but it turns out to be real. Okay, so what if our reality right here, that's kind of the philosophical question. What if this is a simulation too? Does that change anything? And does it matter? There's not a yes or no on that. It's really an interesting just thought experiment, though.
If you are a simulation, I do think there's a difference between simulation and real life. So we see this with Ender. We see this as he's playing in the giant game. He can die over and over. He can try these things. He has multiple lives. And so that's not the same as real life. He can kill things in the giant game, but is that wrong? It might be. So I think this is a great thought experiment because it would lend itself to a lot of thinking and talking about it.
Yeah, and it's interesting, the Giants game, because he ends up doing in his real life the extreme thing when pushed to it. But in the giant game, you're right, he has more chances, more iterations. So he takes longer to get to those extremes. But those are almost what he does automatically when he's pushed to that edge of self-defense.
Yeah, a survival decision.
Yeah. But Ender is so incredibly decent. I love him, actually. My heart breaks for him. I'm glad he has Valentine. But man, it is hard. I think we should do an episode soon on like philosophical questions and arguments, because there's a lot more that we could talk about, because yeah, there's a lot of depth in this book if you go that way. But if you do just read it as an adventure, it's very fun. The battle room, super cool.
I love the battle room. It is great. And Dragon Army, just amazing. There's a quote from this book that I really love. This is after he's talking with Dink in the battle room, when Dink goes in his kind of Zen moment. He talks about things, and Ender doesn't believe everything he says, but it does plant a seed. And so I'm going to go ahead and read this because I really like this quote. So he believed, but the seed of doubt was there, and it stayed, and every now and then sent out a little root. It changed everything to have that seed growing. It made Ender listen more carefully to what people meant instead of what they said. It made him wise. And with that, let's turn the page, and we hope you'll join us for the next chapter.
Hey, thank you so much for listening. If you're willing, please take a moment to give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to this podcast. And we would love it if you'd like and follow us on our Facebook page. But best of all, if you enjoy an episode, please share it with a friend. Writing reviews and sharing with others are a pivotal part of the algorithm wizardry that lets other people know about our podcast. Thank you.